case you were wondering, Shed is a shortening of Sheridan, which is what my parents named me when I was born, both to make me unique and also bullied as a child.
I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but whenever I see a speaker, I always think of a phrase, and this phrase is something I learned at the BBC. It's WIFM, and it stands for what's in it for me. So I'm going to be very clear about what's in it for you with my talk today.
And I think that the brain is the most sexiest organ in the human body. Yeah, correct. It can look forward into the future, and no animal apart from us can do this. Think of an idea, think of a plan, think of a goal, and then come up with the steps to make that plan happen.
And this is a superpower that we all have, and sometimes we forget that we have this, and it's amazing. So we need to remind ourselves of this ability.
When I was 21, I went to work in Disney World as a 16th century gentleman.
What's weird about the 16th century mock-up of Disney is that even then, a glass of Coca-Cola cost about 10 quid.
But what it did was taught me that capitalism and entertainment could go together in the most amazing way. And I came back to the UK inspired, and I wanted to work in the media. And there was a job going at Planet 24.
It was the hottest TV company at the time, making The Big Breakfast and The Word. And there were 2,000 people going for this one job. And I did something that's really important in business. I looked at what everyone else was doing in the market to get the job, and I just did something different.
Everyone else was putting a CV and an application form in, so I sent the boss a pizza at lunchtime. When he opened the lid, it had a ransom note that I'd laminated, and the ransom note said, "I wanted to give you a pizza, my mind," which is terrible, isn't it? Terrible. And then I followed it up with another stunt. And cumulatively, the boss said, "We've got to get this freak in." They got me in, they interviewed me, and I got the job, and I stayed for 6 years, and it was amazing. And when I stayed there, I learned that idea plus brilliant talent could make anything happen.
I also made Big Brother for 10 series. I was one of the bosses. Don't hold it against me, please.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, I had an epiphany, and perhaps a midlife crisis.
And no one tells you when you have careers class at school that you can make novelty gifts and make a career out of it. And so I dovetailed into novelty gifts.
And I'm really proud and also slightly embarrassed to tell you that to date, I've sold over 1.5 million novelty gifts around the world. Thank you very much. I'll give you a couple of examples. Here's one of my latest ones. This is the Count spatula.
I'm also really inspired by identity, and I love the fact we're all different and we've got our own characters. So I made these hide your identity specs, which is you put them on, and when you have a photo, it looks like you're in the Special Forces.
And this sound machine has paid my mortgage for 5 years now. It's perfect for all occasions, perhaps if you get a good sale. And it's also very childish. Nice. How you think affects how we behave. And I think school's terrible, ladies and gentlemen, because it really emphasizes a binary pass or fail about life. And that's wrong. Actually, cheers.
And actually, success is much more amorphous than pass and fail, and success comes in many forms.
I like to think of my life and my business as an experiment, because when a scientist does an experiment, they never fail.
They just have a hypothesis, a method, results, and a conclusion. And if their results don't match their hypothesis, then that's just called in society a failure, but actually in an experiment, it's another chance for another experiment in a different realm, in a different way.
So here's the first technique. A massive cheat. Take something already existing, a technique for getting sales perhaps, and then just twist it slightly.
I thought, okay, that's obvious what happens. You put them on the cake, they spell this phrase. Lots of other companies were doing anodyne phrases like happy birthday and congratulations. But no one was doing anything a bit more creative. So I thought, how can I make them a bit more different, humorous?
And all I did was slightly funnier ones. I did Lost Count and 21 again. There they are on the cake. And my best sellers were You're Old. The second technique that I love to use to come up with an idea is breaking rules. And so I thought, right, can I print my own money? Is that a rule? Well, I looked into it. Now, it is a rule that you can't print someone else's currency. But actually, it's not a rule that you can make your own currency. And that's just what a gift voucher is from Marks and Spencer's or Waitrose. Know you're classy. And
I call it the ego, because if you're going to have your own banknote, you've got to refer to your healthy self-esteem.
So I thought, can I give this a value? I put it on eBay, and amazingly, this sells every week on eBay. People buy it, and my ego banknote has an exchange rate of now about £1.52, which is better than the dollar and the euro, which isn't bad for your own currency, is it? It's amazing. Cheers. When you're thinking of an idea, ladies and gentlemen, and you're trying to develop perhaps a plan to sell more, beware of neg nets. Now, neg nets are what I call negative magnets.
And these are the sort of people that when you pitch them an idea, just by the crease of their brow, they can take the wind from your sails.
And this really helps me, ladies and gentlemen. When I push something out into the world, I think that 33% of people will like it, 33% will hate it, 33% won't understand or just don't care, and 1% is your mum who's always supportive. My mum is, or your dad.
I love putting two things together that haven't been put together before. And I get the yellow pages and an encyclopedia, and you can also do this online with Wikipedia and Yale. And I open them at random pages. And so this is something you can do if you're just really lacking inspiration one day. And see if you can put the two things together. And I did it, and I saw fire alarms and wars and weapons. And your mind tries to put these two things together. And I was thinking, what are the commonalities between the two? And I thought, the word fired. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make a new novelty gift based on a gun that I saw clowns using, which you pull and it says bang. We all know that.
And the wonderful thing about today and the fact that we're on the internet and it allows us to not only connect with people but also reach experts, I can find a factory in China now with a few clicks, which is incredibly empowering and incredibly exciting. So I got onto Alibaba, maybe you know this website, I typed in bang guns and lots of factories came up. I found a factory and I said, all I want to do is I want to make a bang gun, but slightly different. I wanted to have a different phrase so that perhaps if you're working with someone or in a board meeting and you have it, you pull it and it says you're fired.
I had a phone call from the lawyers representing The Apprentice. So this heavy lawyer from America calls me and said, Shed, we're going to sue you. We want back settlement. We want forward settlement. We want you to junk all your stock. And I had nearly 10,000 at that point. I'd sold some, but I was sort of very worried. And I said, how come? And he said, we've trademarked the phrase, you're fired. And I said, no way. That was in the public domain. That was around before Sugar, before Trump. And you can't have that. You surely weren't granted that. And he said, we locked it down when we made the format. I was worried, but I knew that actually you can't blanket trademark a phrase. You have to choose classes. So I went away and I checked whether they had it. And yes, amazingly, they did have it for pens, for all sorts of stationery, apparel, posters. And then I dug a bit further and I looked for the class of novelties and toys, and they didn't have it. And this was a brilliant moment. And I got on the phone immediately to this officious lawyer and I said, you do realise, do you, that you don't have the trademark for You're Fired for guns and novelties? And there was a pause and I could almost hear the blood drain from his face. And in the end, they had to pay me thousands of pounds to buy the trademark from me, and I think someone's getting fired in their legal department, which is sort of...
I don't know if you know that 10,000 books actually denotes a bestseller. So what I did was I published this book myself, which is What Every Man Thinks About Apart from Sex. It didn't take me 1 year or even 8 years or even 8 weeks. It took me no time at all, 9 days, because it's blank inside. If you can give people a story, some pictures and video, which I call the holy triumvirate of online marketing, then you suddenly allow bloggers, journalists, normal people to spread your story.
It had a huge burst of sales in a short period of time, and it started to overtake some of the very famous books in the chart. But then it took a really odd turn, and I received an email that I thought was from a friend playing a joke. And the email said this, it said, Dear Shed, we really like your book, What Every Man Thinks About Apart from Sex. We're a publisher from Spain, and we want to translate it.
And so now, ladies and gentlemen, I've been published in Spanish. Then Croatia picked it up. I went to Croatia. The Dutch were deviant. They didn't do my blue and white cover. I went to Holland. It was really exciting. They put me on the back. The Japanese went minimalist and really cool. And even Mongolia. Mongolia. How many yaks find it funny?
Here are ways to think up a new idea, twist something already existing, rip up the rule book, look to other industries, and then look at your customers' habits, use video, and perhaps fail a bit more, but on a very manageable scale. You've been wonderful, I've been Shed.
A backless dress and some